Welcome to Community Voices, Stories That Matter, a podcast by Batanga Productions. I'm your host, Rafael Batanga. At Batanga Productions, we believe in the power of community-centered storytelling to build trust and scale mission-driven work. Today, we're going to be speaking with Eric.prine about his journey from being a photographer to a successful real estate agent in Philadelphia. I guess we'll start off by going through a quick lightning round so that people can get to know you.
All right,
so,
give it to me.
Coffee or tea to start your busiest day?
Coffee. Black coffee, about, let's say 2/3 of a pot on a given day. And that's the only thing I have up until lunch.
Okay, up until lunch. I thought you would be saying up until like 4 p.m.
No. Lunch. Once I go to lunch, then I switch to carbonated water.
Okay, how about this one? Private showings or open houses?
Oh, private showings. Yeah.
Okay.
Like to take somebody on or
Yeah.
to host? Yeah. I mean, hosting open houses is kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, because you get to meet a lot of people that come through. But no, I'd rather take my clients through, and we just are the only people there and discussing the house. When there's other people there at an open house, one, there's another agent there that's running the open house. So sometimes they want to talk to you and you're like, no, we want to go over here. And then when there's other people there, you kind of feel like you can't speak super freely. Either they're going to think that we like it, and if we actually do like it, then that's going to maybe make them more likely to also like it and have competition. So sometimes you like pretend that it's like, we'll jokingly say like, oh my God, look how bad that is. That's a true thing.
City listings or suburban properties?
City.
Tell me more.
No, I just like the city. I didn't grow up in a city, so I like things that are neat, like tight. So I like these smaller spaces. Although I love it when I go into a really big city house, you know, where it's like, oh, it's in the city, but it's like 2,000 or 3,000 square feet. What do you do with all this space? Whereas that's just like a regular house in the suburbs. I like what they do with these, like it's 13, sometimes 12 to 18 feet wide, maybe, you know, like, and what are they, like, it's just so cool what people can do in that tiny space.
Tiny space?
Yeah, okay. I love the city houses.
This modern renovations or historic charm?
Both.
Oh.
The perfect house has both. Yeah. In my opinion, my favorite houses have like retained all the charm, all the original details of these amazing like 100-plus-year-old houses, and then have like a completely modern updated kitchen and bathroom. That's like, and modern light fixtures and stuff. Like that's the perfect balance. If I had to choose one over the other, I would go with traditional.
Oh, traditional.
Yeah, not traditional as a style, like, you know, not like new stuff that has a traditional look to it, but I would rather have a house that is like a 200-year-old and everything's original.
Yeah.
Than like a brand new construction. But I love see, that's the thing, is because of all this photography I did in architecture. I also love like modern architecture. You know, I have a friend who's an architect in the Hamptons, and he does all like cool modern houses. And I really like it but you don't see that much here, right? There's a house. There's a house not far from here that has the original old house. I haven't been on the inside, but the pictures look pretty cool. And they just built this modern addition off the back. So it's like you fully have both. You have a stone colonial house.
Yeah. And
then you have a totally modern, like angular with big pieces of glass and stuff, you know, big, huge windows attached to it.
Okay, so the best of both worlds.
That's the world. That's the best.
When dealing with clients, do you prefer text or call?
Text. Yeah, I don't like being on the phone.
Okay.
The thing that no realtor should do is if I don't know the number, I don't answer the call.
Yeah.
Like most realtors will answer every single call no matter what, just in case. Now, if it's important, then you will leave a message. Yeah. And then I say in my outgoing message, for quicker response, please shoot me a text. Yeah. So I express that I prefer text. Also because a text, I can see that I have it, and then I can deal with it later. I can respond in time that makes sense for me. often if it's a question from a client, it's something that I might need to like research a little bit. So always text.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm Eric.Prine. I work for Compass in Chestnut Hill and out of Ardmore sometimes. And I'm a realtor with a history in photography. So I like to think that I, got my love of real estate from photographing really beautiful buildings. And yeah, I help anyone across the spectrum of buying and selling. And that includes investors that are looking to, create generational wealth through real estate. And it includes your primary home buyers, that have no interest in anything investing. And then the best of both worlds, because like I said before, the best of both worlds, someone like you who's doing both, because you got a house hack. Right. So that is like you're investing and you're buying your primary residence. So that's actually my favorite, is working with people that really understand that not only is it a lifestyle choice, but it's also an investment. And so I can help anyone that's selling a house, buying a house, people that are flipping houses. That's a lot of fun because I like to help them with the design choices, both from a standpoint of selfishly putting in what I like, but also steering them towards something that is going to be more likely to sell. A lot of times you'll see really bad flips where you just think someone bought whatever was the cheapest to put it in there, and it just doesn't, like, stylistically, it doesn't make any sense. It's not of the moment. And it looks like, you just redid this, but all this stuff looks like it was redone in like 97. You see it a lot. And so I like that's doing that design part, or at least like being able to sort of nudge them a little bit on the design, I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Over the years you've been doing this, what's been the craziest deal you've worked on?
Oh. This one you should have written me before, because then I could have thought about it. God, craziest deal. I can't think of any one specifically like super crazy deal. I can think of a whole bunch of little like incidences that, but they didn't all happen on the same deal, so it doesn't make anyone like really crazy. You want to hear some of those little things?
Yeah, I guess like, maybe more so from like your perspective of maybe even the longest one and why it was so drawn out.
So sometimes they're long just because it's planned that way from the beginning. Like the woman who's the head of my team, Linda Glass, she referred to it as like having an annuity, like, that's going to pay you later. So like I've had ones where we go under contract, and because of something with the way the seller or the buyer needed it, it doesn't settle for like 4 months. Like you get it all done, like all of the inspections are done, the appraisal gets done, and then you just wait until it's time for it to settle. Like I think the last one I did was because, the sellers weren't ready to move out until their new place was ready, and the buyers were coming from a rental, so it didn't really matter. Like they were like, we'll just go month to month, and then we'll move when it makes the most sense. And then you have ones that just like, I've had ones that like keep pushing, like you think it's going to settle, and then something goes wrong at the last minute, and then it gets pushed, and then it gets pushed, and then it gets pushed. Luckily I don't think I've had any that have done that and then fallen apart. Yeah, I haven't had very many that I actually can't think of a single one that has fallen apart sort of last minute. Okay, a lot of times they fall apart during, a lot of times they fall apart during the inspections, but that's almost that's pretty typical, yeah. Although it happens a lot less now because it's a lot more common now to waive inspections because it's such a competitive market, which is terrible for the buyers. But there's workarounds that we figured out. Like I figured out over the years, I have a inspector that'll go do a walk around inspection, like a walkthrough, and we'll basically get 90% of what you would get on a normal inspection, but with no photos and no report. And then the buyers can hear it, they can record it, they can take notes, ask questions, and then they can feel comfortable, like I know enough, I know what the major issues are, and I'm willing to waive, or I'm not willing to waive. But it's still always better if you can get an inspection.
An inspection, right.
Yeah.
I want you to take me back when you first started. Like, what was that first deal? Like, how did you find it?
The first, I definitely know the first deal. So when I started, I was still a photographer. So I had that fallback, right? And photography was, it's like definitely a feast or famine kind of a thing. Like it'd be really busy for a week, and then I'd have a long time with no work. You know, I'd have to leave town on a photo shoot, and then when I'm back, I have like several weeks with nothing specific that I have to do. So I used to be in the KW Philly office, and I would just go in every day. We didn't even have, my wife and I didn't have 2 cars, so I would just get on the bus, and I would take the bus until I could get on the subway, and then I'd take the subway all the way downtown. And I did that pretty much every day, and then I would take all the classes that they had. So that office would offer classes most days, and I had a mentor who was my realtor, my wife and Sarah's and my realtor when we bought our first house. And he sort of helped me through all the things. He would help me take, like if I had follow-up questions from classes, he would help me with that. He would set me up on some of the education stuff that he was doing. And 2 months in, I was just like, man, nothing's happened, right? Like I'm learning, but I haven't met any potential clients or anything. And he suggested that I sign up for Zillow leads. So you basically pay for leads within a certain zip code. And the first zip code I did was 19144, which is Germantown.
I see.
And so my very first deal was this, and it was, of course, it was like I think it's still maybe the lowest price deal that I've ever done.
How low are we talking here?
Like it was $47,000. Yeah, he found, now you can't even find those. But even like a almost teardown is hard to find that. So he found this one that was, you paid $47,000. It was just, a wreck. It needed absolutely everything. There was an old not running car still in the garage, and then they had put a post behind, like at the center of the garage door to support the second floor that trapped the car in, like so you couldn't get it out. And it was just full of somebody's stuff, somebody that was probably a hoarder and then had passed away. And so that was the first one. He bought that. I made, I don't even know, $800 maybe, pretty low. But then my next one was like, a first-time home buyer that was buying at the time, a pretty okay priced house. It was like $250,000, and I met her at an open house, and she'd already seen the house. She liked me. She's like, I think I already know that I want to buy this house, but will you come with me to look at it again? And we go and look at it. And she's like, okay, yeah, I want to put an offer in. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's easy.
So you went from working on a $47,000 deal to then, what happened in between that?
Well, I don't remember the exact timeline, but so I started getting the Zillow leads, and then I had started before, but started doing even more open houses. So that's where you go to other listing agents when they need someone to sit their open house, when they need someone to be there and run the open house, but they don't want to do it. Then you can go do it for them. It's really good for newer agents, because basically anyone that walks in, if they don't already have an agent, then you have the chance to introduce yourself, meet them. If you guys connect, then you can become their agent. So I would do that a lot. There was one open house I did. I actually did it 2 days in a row, I think a Saturday and a Sunday, at the same address. And from that one house, the open house of that one house, I think I got 4 clients that actually bought houses. And one of them has bought a house, then I helped them sell that house, and then I helped them buy another house, all since from that one open house. But that very first client was from that open house as well. But so between all of those, Zillow leads would come in periodically, and I would be able to, it's called converting. I don't really like that term, but it's like if you get someone to actually work with you, then you'd convert them to a client. And between that and the open houses, in my first full year, because I think my first settlement was like early February of 2019, and by the end of that year I did like 24 transactions, which is, even I think now considered to be pretty good. Yeah, 2 a month on average.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that this conversation can go, but I'm so curious, when you go and tour homes with people, what do you secretly get most excited about to show them?
Well, so I depending on who the client is and what their goals are, I will sort of adjust what I'm doing. So there's something kind of fun about going with people that are just looking for like this, like completely move-in ready, beautiful family home. And we can just sort of commiserate over how pretty a place is, or where they missed the mark on it, or where, just like, but just the actual, like, this is such a nice house. This is great. Oh, look what you could do here. Look. But then it's kind of even more fun to go into houses that you're looking for ones that need to be renovated, and you're just seeing like total messes, just like complete terrible dumps. And then those are really fun to sort of talk to people about. I'm like, oh, you could do this. You should take everything down. Don't just leave nothing but the studs and the joists. And then in between, like if you're just going with someone and, maybe they're getting something that isn't a new construction or isn't newly renovated. And so it's fun to go through a regular house and then like, I'm going to point out everything wrong with this house. And so I think a lot of people will be like, well, I have to make all the houses seem really good so my clients will want them. But no, I want to make sure that they know everything that I see that's wrong with the house. And so after doing this now for, 7 years, and however many houses total that I've done, which was probably in the neighborhood of 150, and then probably having gone to that many inspections as well. Actually, probably fewer inspections because it is becoming a little less common, but like going with the inspector and like having conversations with them the whole time. Now I feel like when I go through a house, like I'm going to catch 85% of what an inspector might catch as well. So like I love to point out, and just and educate them as well, right? Yeah. Like go in and talk to them about what knob and tube wiring is, and like, hey, this house is totally move-in ready and you don't need to update the kitchen, but no one ever rewired it, and it has super old wiring running through that you might want to spend some money on getting replaced because it's, there's an inherent safety hazard with it. So I like kind of doing those things, pointing out the blemishes.
And I think that's what I've appreciated about you, because I was working with a different agent when I first started, and it just seemed like they were trying to sell me the house instead of trying to help me identify the problems. Right. And when I met you, you're like, well, I guess we're going to keep going and looking at different places. We looked at a triplex, and then we ended up not speaking for a while because I was like, oh.
Because you were so mad at me.
No, I think, a part of me was like also feeling a bit cold feet in those situations because it's such a big purchase, right? Yeah. And the approach that I'm hearing from you is it's so relationship based, and it's telling them what they should be aware of.
Right. Yeah, like being the trusted source for them for, obviously anything real estate related, but I kind of like to think I'd love it when somebody, that was a client that bought something and they're not going to buy anything anytime soon, but I'm still in touch with them. We still keep in touch. And then they'll have just some random question that almost like is only maybe adjacent to real estate, but they think, I'm going to check and see if Eric knows the answer to this. And if I don't, then I can be, I don't know that. Maybe I'll look into it and see if I can find an answer for you, or like, oh, here's somebody that can answer that for you. So I like being that like connector as well. Yeah. So like I like having a stable of different vendors that I can connect people with. Like that's a really common one that you see, whether it's someone that's going to be renovating a house that they buy for, whether it's their primary residence or whether it's an investment. But even if they weren't planning on renovating, they're going to have some little things that come up, right? I tried to connect you with someone, it didn't work out as well, but I have like other people that are like little, like a handyman, an electrician, a plumber, HVAC, like all the like trades. Yeah. I have people that I can say.
Or lead certification.
That's right. Josh did that.
Yeah.
Is he doing it?
Yeah. It finished today.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that got finished too, and.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier just to have someone, because the first time I did it, I had to research it, and I had like the first 2 or 3 properties that we had to do lead certification on. I did, like, after doing some research, I found someone, and it was totally fine. They were totally fine to work with. And then at some point, just, I don't know, throughout working with a bunch of people, I came across Josh and found out he did that. Like he does other kinds of inspections. He does like all manner of inspections.
Yeah.
But I came across him and found out he did that, and I was like, oh, nice. He's just now saved in my phone.
Yeah.
And he can do, like, I know that he's a person to go to for a lead inspection.
Okay. I know we're here in Philadelphia, but for people who may be looking to move to Philadelphia, like what are your favorite neighborhoods right now?
Okay, to live in or
to live in, and why?
We'll go with live in. Yeah, Mount Airy, that's where I live, and Chestnut Hill, that's where we are right now. Chestnut Hill is like just the very fancier version of Mount Airy. So Mount Airy you can get into for less money and still be really close to Chestnut Hill and have very similar things. It's my favorite because it has the parts of the city that I would want, meaning the population density in the city is obviously a lot higher than in the suburbs or in small towns. And so Mount Airy has more population density than you would get in the suburbs. Yeah. But it still has tons of trees around. You can walk from most of the places in that neighborhood, you can walk to the Wissahickon, which is the big park. It has like 50 plus miles of hiking trails in it, and it's inside the city limits. And then it has, I mean, if the camera were to turn right over there, this is Germantown Avenue, businesses all up and down there, you know, including bars and restaurants and local shops. I think almost no like chains either. It's almost all like small local places, and so in that way it has like a small town feel to it. So it has, like, my wife refers to it as the fake suburbs. Like, we're still totally in the city, you know. We live a half a block from a train, and the train will take us right downtown. But it just has like the best of all of those things that you might want. Yeah. And if you're on the fence, like, do I want to stay in the city? Do I want a more suburban lifestyle? Like Mount Airy, basically the ones that surround Mount Airy, Chestnut Hill, Germantown, they all kind of have that. And then as far as if I wanted something a little bit more, even denser, like a more urban feel.
Yeah, so let's say somebody is wanting to have the Philadelphia feel.
Yeah, my favorite is, what do you want to do here? My two favorites. I'm going to say my two favorites are Fairmount and Old City. So Old City has a lot fewer like actual row houses that most people can afford. Yeah. So if you're living there, you're probably living in an apartment. But I mean, the architecture is so insanely beautiful down there. Again, tons and tons of, you know, restaurants and stuff. And Fairmount is like all really like beautiful, from small 1,000 square feet to like big 2,500 square feet row houses that have been like pretty well maintained over the years and then have been renovated, you know, in more recent times. But in some parts of the city, you'll see that, you know, houses fell into disrepair and they had to tear some down. Yeah. So it's really common to see, like, you know, where you would have a whole block of all row houses. In some parts of the city, you have a lot of like missing, you know, where they had to tear them down. Yeah. Whereas in Fairmount, they still seem to have almost all of it just has like these blocks of beautiful row houses. You still have like quite a few trees down there, and then you're walking distance to Ben Franklin Parkway, which means you have like all the museums like up and down there. Yes. And Philly has some like really fantastic museums, including I think one of only 2 Rodin museums in the world, like the other one being in outside of Paris, and then the Barnes. Oh my God, the Barnes is like museum. Such an incredible museum. And again, like talking about architecture, like it's a really beautiful modern building on the outside that I think is a nice contrast to the so many historical looking buildings that Philadelphia has. But there's also so many other little pockets that I like Passyunk Square is really great because there's so much good food and stuff down there. You know, Fishtown and Northern Liberties, exact same thing. It's got a really good balance of old row houses and new construction. Some new construction like townhouses, but also a lot more that are bigger apartment buildings. In fact, you're seeing a lot more of those go up. Yeah. And then again, so many like really great local restaurants to check out.
For families, where do they tend to go?
I think, you see families a lot around, you know, some parts of Center City. There's a handful of school catchments that are considered to be, you know, better than average. Philadelphia doesn't have the best reputation when it comes to public schools, but Like for instance, the Meredith catchment, which is kind of in the Queen Village area of northeastern South Philly, just below Center City. Like you see a lot of families in there. I think really the little bands, I always think of the bands that are just north and south of Center City. So Fairmount over to Northern Liberties, and then up just a little bit into Fishtown, and then everything that would include maybe past Young Square up to Queen Village, to even going across Broad to Newbold, and certainly Graduate Hospital. Like there's sort of those bands. You see a lot of, I think, families that live in those areas. So there's like the families with young kids that really like the city feel. And then when they tend to want a little more space, you almost see them go like one more step before, if they decide to leave the city, they'll do one more little step. So one would be up here into the Mount area. And I think the other one would be like if they went to near University City, where you have a lot of the bigger row and twin houses that are, just stunning. A lot of them, I think Queen Anne is the style that a lot of those are, and a lot of them have been really well maintained. And so they still have a lot of really beautiful original details in them. And then it's like, and also there's another really good school catchment over there at the Penn Alexander. So if anyone is kind of wanting a little bit more space and the density of being right near Center City is too much, they might move to either up here over into West Philly. And then it seems like if families are like, you know what, we need a lot more space, or sometimes that's school related as well. They'll move out to the suburbs.
I see.
Yeah.
So for folks who are first-time home buyers, what should be like the questions they're asking, maybe the top 5 questions they should be asking when they're working with a real estate agent?
I mean, the questions that are important to think about, I don't know if you actually have to ask them out loud, but the things to think about are, some of the most important ones are on the loan side, right? Because obviously you have to work with a good lender to get your pre-approval, but I think figure out what is the comfort level for you, for what your payment's going to be and how that fits into your financial life. And don't just say oh, I qualify for this much, so that's how much of a house I'm going to buy. You want to be conservative with that. Things change all the time, and you don't know that, that's still going to be affordable if it was at the very tip top of your price point. So I think be conservative with what you are going to spend. And then when it comes to the house itself, you have to figure out what your non-negotiables are. I mean, you're coming from a life as a renter, right? And there are some certain disadvantages to being a renter, just literally that the place isn't your own, and so you can't modify it if you want. But you can, if you don't like it, you can change. You just finish out your lease, and then you can find a new place next time. So you can always change. So you don't have to really figure out what you want, because if you live there for a little while and it's this isn't it, then when the lease is over, find a new place. Once you buy a place, it's hard to say oh, this isn't quite what I hoped it would be, I'm going to sell it. You're good. Almost any time you sell within 5 years, unless there's been some amazing, or not amazing in a good way, but just a huge, uptick in the value of homes, once you add in the cost of selling, you're probably going to break even or lose money if you sell within 5 years. It's just kind of a rule of thumb. But so figure out what are your non-negotiables. Do I need a yard? Do I need parking? Do I need to have more than one bathroom? I mean, the most common, I think, house type in Philadelphia is going to be a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom row house, with either a teeny tiny back little courtyard, or some of the ones, there's a lot of parts of the city where they have parking in the back. So you don't really have a backyard, but you have a little driveway, and you can pull into maybe a garage that's in the basement, basically. And so you have to figure out what are the things that are going to be most important to me. Are any of those things that are sort of characteristics of the house itself, or is it location? Obviously the 3 most important things in real estate: location, location, location. But I don't know, are you the type of person that spends most of your time in your house, and it's really more important to you that the house be everything you want it to be, because you have a car and you can drive to a different location? So you have to just figure out what is going to make the most sense. And I see a lot of people, and it's really more first-time home buyers that have the, like dealing with it in their head, the battle between the things that they can afford and the things that they want. And that's what it sometimes comes down to, where you're like, okay, well, I can afford, 50% of what I want in this neighborhood, but maybe I can afford 90% of what I want in this neighborhood. But which is more important to me? And I think it's really important to see both. Like, go to both. Like, look at houses in both. And figure out, like, now that I'm in this house that I think is perfect, that maybe the actual house itself, but I'm like, okay, I look outside and, maybe there's a lot of trash on the street, maybe there's, maybe I'm like really far from anything walkable, and the train is not very close, these kinds of things that just make it like, I wish it was in a different area. And then you go to a different area and you're like, okay, so this is exactly where I would want to be, but this is what I can afford. And I'm giving up whatever's on your list that you might be giving up. And just physically be in both of those spaces and multiple versions of both of those spaces. Like, I think the statistic is the average person looks at 12 houses before they find one. And I've certainly had people I've had a small handful of people that have only looked at one, and then they bought. And then I've had people that have looked at, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. I have people that I've been working with for 5 years that still haven't bought. They're obviously not looking full time, but then they'll have these spurts of times where they're like, okay, now we think we're gonna look again, and they'll look at something, and then if it's not quite right, they don't move forward. But I think if you're kind of if you're like, okay, we're looking, we want to have something in 2 or 3 months, we kind of have this timeline that we really want to find something within, then go see at least a dozen houses. Let's go out 3 or 4 times and look at 3 to 4 houses each time, and let's compare houses in the couple of different areas that you're interested in. So that was a very long-winded way of explaining that. But
yeah.
Thanks for calling me long-winded.
How about for folks who are selling their homes?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get it to sell quickly?
So the most important things for selling quickly are get it ready. It sounds stupid, but it's just get it ready to sell. If there's things that are broken, if there's a light hanging by a wire, fix it before you put it on the market. If you had I see this so often. You had a roof leak 10 years ago and it stained the ceiling, and you fixed the roof, you replaced the roof is great. You never dealt with the ceiling, you just let it be stained, fix that stuff. So I like to walk through with a potential seller and just literally walk through the entire house and give them my wish list of everything that they would do. And then they can figure out if how much of it is realistic, how much of it is, going to be not cost too much, not take too much time, not take too much bandwidth from them, from their busy lives. I can help them hire someone out if they need to get some of the work done. But if it's ready, if it's actually ready, in a perfect world, they are out of it. In a perfect world, none of their stuff is in it, and we can stage it. We can hire a professional stager to go in and thoughtfully place furnishings that give the best idea of what that space can be, and then also doesn't have anything that is too personal, so that someone else doesn't feel like that. So you don't feel like you're in someone else's space when you look at it. So all these things make the house feel like, oh, this is like a picture of as good as it can be, but nothing's too personal of someone else's that I can't picture myself in it. And then price it right. That is the most important thing. And if you're not doing some of those other things, if you're not staging it and you're not really getting it ready, then you need to price it accordingly. You're not going to get as much money for a house that you didn't fix a little bit. If you have a house and you just because you liked it, 20 years ago, you have one room that's pink and one room that's green and one room, if you don't want to deal with repainting that and fixing it, that's fine, but you're probably going to get less money for it. and then so when you look at, so I look at comps, I look at, comparable properties that have sold in the vicinity of that house, figure out how similar is this house we're talking about to these other houses, and that's how we figure out the price. And like, I just like to be sort of right on the money, if not just a little tiny bit under, because I think if you're just a little bit below what everyone kind of thinks it should sell for, you're going to have more people that are just going to think, oh, this is a good deal, I should go look at this. And then you're going to have more people, hopefully, that are like, okay, so yeah, at this price, it makes so much sense. It's even like a little bit maybe cheaper than I would expect. So I'm going to put an offer, but then someone else puts an offer too. And now, yeah, they like are competing with each other, and they can potentially bid it up. Like the last 3 listings that I had, and they all kind of listed right after the first of the year. In fact, they all just settled between last week and the prior week. But all of them, we put it on, we like also had like a timing, like a multiple stage marketing sort of plan that helps. I remember someone once explained it, actually Sky Michaels explained it as being like when a teaser trailer comes out about a movie, like you get a teaser trailer, and then a little bit later you get the full trailer, and then a little bit later you get the actual movie. So here it would be like we put it on Compass Private Exclusive. So that means only other Compass agents and their clients can see it. And so you put it out there and you kind of feel out like, okay, does this smaller group of agents and buyers, do they seem interested? Ask for feedback about the price. Like, are we too high? Are we too low? Is it perfect? Are there things that we need to do to it? And then do a coming soon where it goes out to everybody. But again, it's not officially on the market yet. So, but everyone on Zillow is going to see it pop up coming soon. And just do that for just a few days. And then so by the time you put it on the market, it's maybe Thursday or Friday of that week. Have an open house on Saturday with any luck, and then market that really well. I send it out to a couple thousand agents, usually send it out to basically just everyone in my database, maybe put it on social media, just things to get the knowledge of the new listing and the open house out there to the public. And then with any luck, you'll have a really good showing at the open house, and you'll have offers within that first week. So I felt like I was, lucky, but also, planned well. So on these last 3, it worked out pretty much exactly like that. Within a week of putting them on the market, we'd done the private exclusive, coming soon, on the market with an open house within the first few days on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and then had, 1 or more offers by shortly after that weekend. And then all of them sold for at or just slightly above asking. So, and I think that sometimes that's better. Like if you can just get it to go fast, like that's better than, I don't know, it's better than it even getting a little bit more money, but it like takes months.
Yeah.
Like say, picture if you started, a house that you're like, this should sell for $500,000, and your client's like, okay, let's list it for $550,000. I don't want to, but okay. Then you agree to do it. And then 2 weeks, nothing happens. So you drop it by 10,000. Nothing happens. 'Cause it's still just too high.
Yeah.
And it starts to get a bit of a stigma about it just sitting there, and people are like, why is it sitting there? They don't necessarily think like, oh, it was just too high to begin with. They think, oh, there's something wrong with it. There must be something wrong with it because no one's bought it and it's been there for a month. Now it's been there for 6 weeks, and now it's been there for 2 months. So even if you got it to sell like a little bit above what you were, like if I was like, let's sell it for 5, and we would have got it under contract right away. If it takes 2 or 3 months or longer, even if you got like 10,000 more, like you're paying your mortgage that whole time, like it's just delaying everything for all that time. Like I think that you would still have, if you'd been given the choice at the beginning, you would have taken the 500 in a week or 510 in 3 months. Yeah. And then sometimes because it's got the stigma, you'll actually end up getting less than you would have maybe originally put it for, because people are just like, well, there's something wrong with it. I can't pay that much. So if you price it right, I think, and then market it right, it should sell, or at least have an offer within the first week. And honestly, if it doesn't have one within the first week, then there's something wrong, and it's typically going to be the price. So, I'll be a little bit more, like I won't usually talk about a price change after 1 week, but at 2 weeks, if there's nothing after 2 weeks, we have to talk about a price change, because it's not priced right. Because if it was priced right, someone would have made an offer on it.
You've got a very methodical way of doing it, and
it's
masterfully put together. With, I guess, the amount of agents that are out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think branding is something that a lot of different agents are thinking about. How do you currently brand yourself?
So one nice thing about Compass is they have a design aesthetic for the whole company that luckily overlaps my personal design aesthetic. So that's helpful. And they have like guidelines about how you can market yourself, meaning the branding, like how physically things can look in all of your different branding material. And they have an in-house marketing, kind of like a marketing agency, but a marketing department. And so one of the things they do for new agents is they help you design a logo. And I remember that when they start by sending you, I don't know how many rounds they would go through, but the first time they send you 3. And it's often around your initials. That's like the most common way to do it. And I remember seeing them, and the first one came, and I was like, no thanks. The second one was like, it's a miss too. And then the third one, I was like, holy crap, that's beautiful. And I was just like, that's surprisingly perfect on the third try. And so using, this logo that they designed and using kind of their simple 2-tone black and white design aesthetic, that's what I use in all of my marketing. And then I try to supplement it with really nice, comfortable lifestyle photographs of me working, or me with my family. I'm actually overdue to get new photographs taken. But yeah, and then so it's like you can have this what I feel like is a pretty high design, the branding.
Yeah.
And it's so clean because it's all black and white, and it's it manages to not be stark, but being, very, I don't know what the right word is, but it's very clean. It's like this black and white aesthetic.
It's like the Apple of
real
estate.
It really is, yeah. They always, all the signs look pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And but they'll have the person's name and then their logo, which is almost always designed in-house. And there's obviously a lot of similarities with the different logos, but then I played with mine a little bit with the way I would lay it out on my business card. I don't do exactly the way that most of them do. I played with it just a little bit, just with the way that I lay the logo and then my name out.
Yeah.
And then on emails that go out, and my website, which, as you overheard me telling my wife I need to redo my website. I was using a service that got too expensive, and so I let it go away, and I need to set up a new one. I just haven't done it. It's been a few months. But pairing these warm, inviting lifestyle photos that kind of give someone a glimpse as to who I am.
Yeah.
I think putting those two together, clean design with really inviting and comfortable photographs of me working or me with my family. I think putting those together, it shows sophistication with approachability.
Right. And I guess this is leading me to start thinking, once you've got your branding, your logos together, with the rise of social media, how has that you know how it is.
Yeah.
Staying top of mind. How?
Yeah, that's I definitely I fail at that. I used to have somebody that I hired, and they would do social media marketing for me. I decided to turn those dollars in another direction. I don't know. Like, I think there are people that do a really good job at building a brand, on social media, and they get followers, and I guess you almost could say they get fans, right? So they eventually have people that might reach out to them to help them buy a house or help them sell a house that they only ever knew, or they found them through social media. Like, that's never happened for me, and to be honest, I just don't like going on social media. In fact, I am on a detox from it right now. It's not even on my phone. The downside of that is, I don't post the things that I should be posting, right? In fact, this is making me think oh yeah, I should go post the 3 houses that just sold so that I keep at least something out there. Yeah. But yeah, when it comes to where I want to spend my time, it's just not there,
Why is it not social media? I'm so curious.
I just don't like it. I don't like so many things about social media.
Yeah.
The way, it's so curated that it's not real. Mm. But then that also makes it really fun to look at, because it's so fun to look at the perfect 1% of somebody's life that they're showing you, right? Yeah. But I come at it a little bit more from it sucks so much of my time when I let it, essentially doom scrolling and, looking at, if it's real estate stuff, I'm looking at other realtors' things and being I wish that I was doing that. So that adds some enviousness, some jealousy that I don't love. And even if it's something that's really uplifting, which I, would follow a lot of that, or educational, outside of the world of real estate, I still would just, be on it. Say I'd be looking at something and realize that I'm paying no attention to the person I'm with, which is often my wife or my son. And I'm well, this isn't very good. And then occasionally when I just would have, there's just a lot of free time and I don't have anything maybe going on for a little bit. And then I'm sure this has happened to you before too. All of a sudden you're has it been 2 hours? Have I been doing this for 2 hours? And so I just stopped doing it. But the downside is it has a purpose as a marketing tool. But it's hard if you're trying to really cut back and detox from being a consumer of that social media, but still I definitely wouldn't be a creator. I think that's a very specific designation now, but even posting, updates to what I'm doing, I don't even, in a good way, I don't even think about doing it because I'm not on it at all anymore. So that's good for me, but yeah, it's just it's not exactly my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've also been so successful building relationships in other ways, getting leads from.
Yeah, it's funny because I still do Zillow leads, and then you and I met through Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
And I still get Bigger Pockets leads, and those are people that have put it out into the world that they, in a very specific little way, that they are interested in potentially buying or selling a house. They've self-selected by clicking the buttons that that make them get connected with me. And then it's up to me to actually connect with them, to jump on a call with them, to meet them in person, find out if I'm able to help with what their particular goals are. A lot of times, people they click on something and they fill it out and they're just kind of I'm just going to see what happens. I don't know if I'm really ready for this. I don't even know if I'm really interested in this. And so, probably 90% of people that you get connected with, you don't actually end up working with in some way. But that 10%, I do feel I get close with most of them. I become very friendly, if not actually friends with them. And so, yeah, if there's hopefully then later, if someone that I've worked with and they've had a good experience working with me and we become, very close acquaintances or even friends, then hopefully when they know of someone that doesn't have an agent to work with, I'll say like, you should call Eric, because it was really good when I worked with him.
And that's the way I did the same.
Yeah, that's the way that I want to like build this, like ideally. But sometimes you still need ways to get those initial introductions.
Right.
And so that's what I get that from Zillow, I get that from Bigger Pockets, and I just don't want to put the time into doing it. I think I would have to dedicate a lot more time to trying to do it on social media, and I'd rather be, hanging out with my wife and son.
As you should, though.
Yeah.
Just a couple questions
Yeah.
before we wrap up. What keeps you up at night as a real estate agent?
If it's anything actually related to real estate, it's going to be something specific to like a deal that's having, a tough moment. Occasionally something will slip through the cracks that didn't, because it's me, but I also have a transaction coordinator. On a listing side, I also have a conveyancer. So there's like a 2 or 3 person team that's kind of like keeping track of everything. But every now and then something will slip through the cracks, and it's kind of like, and of course when I find out, I'll find out at like 9 o'clock at night, so that I can't really do much about it, and that will literally keep me up at night. I don't know, and the business itself can be very, very hard on your mental health, because you don't there's no regular paycheck, there's no health insurance, there's no any of those things. So it's like, if you're not trying to constantly, get more business, you don't know that any more paychecks are going to come. And then it makes, like, I went on that longer trip. The first time we went on a fairly long trip last month, we left for 3.5 weeks. And, I set things up with some colleagues to cover me. We did it specifically at like basically the slowest time of year. I still worked probably an average of 2 hours every day while I was gone. But yeah, it's like, it's hard when you're like, I don't even know if I can take a vacation, because if I don't work, then and it's like, because everything you're doing now is like setting you up for getting a paycheck 1 to 3 to 6 months down the line. So if I don't do this now, it's not hurting me today, it's hurting me 1 to 3 to 6 months down the line. So that's just nerve-wracking, and sometimes you hit these dry spells and you're like, I haven't had a good lead that's come in, no one's referred anyone in a while, and you'll go like literally a month. Sometimes I think I've gone 2 months without like a single closing. So like $0 come in, and that stresses you out a ton. Then you have these months where it's like a third of the year's income comes in like 1 month. And then you have to like dole all that out, or you have to catch up on the things that, maybe fell a little behind on. It gets like, it takes so much, it takes a lot of structure, and I'm working on getting that to be better. And I think if I had it really good, if I had like the structure, if I felt like it was like perfectly in place, then I wouldn't get so nervous when it did get a little bit slow. But yeah, when it gets slow, that's the thing that mostly would keep me up at night.
Well, despite these ebbs and flows, what keeps you motivated in staying as an agent?
It's fun. It's really fun. I like meeting new people. I like helping them obtain a goal. I have ADHD pretty bad, and it's like, if we can like set a goal and then work together to get to the end of that goal, where we also get to have tons of distractions along the whole way. Like, let's look at some houses that you're never going to buy, and that's okay, because eventually we'll find the right one. Or if I'm working with investors, because it's like, investors is funny because usually they're buying properties that need to be renovated, so they're a lot cheaper properties, which means I make less money, right? Because they're less expensive properties. And sometimes there's more work involved in those, but they're so much fun because I'm helping someone like find a project, And so like, I think that's where I have turned the creative energy that I used to put into photography. Now I kind of put it into that, like, let's find this old, beat up, blighted, dilapidated house that, no one's lived in 10 years, and the ceiling's falling in, and let's figure out like how to turn it into a beautiful house that somebody is going to want to make into their home. So like, that just becomes really fun. Sometimes it's like, if it is a slow time, and maybe there's, not, I don't know, there's just like a random couple hours available on a day that I don't have anything I need to do, or I will often just pull up properties and look at properties that need to be rehabbed and like try to find one and be like, oh, this might work for this person to buy and rehab, because it's just still fun for me to do.
You must really love it, which is really great. So this brings us to the closure of our conversation. Right. So thank you so much for educating me, for sharing your wealth of knowledge.
No
if folks want to get in touch with you, if they're buying a house, considering moving to Philadelphia, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Text and email is the easiest. Email is just eric.prine@compass.com. Eric with a C, Prine just like the singer John Prine that we lost a few years ago. And then my phone number is 267-768-4404. And if you want to remember from earlier, text, don't call.
Text, don't call.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you again. Thank you for listening. I'm Rafael Batanga, and we've been speaking with Eric Prine from Compass Real Estate. If you're interested in learning how authentic storytelling can amplify your organization's impact and scale your brand, visit batangaproductions.com. See you next time.